Notice the story you're asking me to write involves a romantic/marital betrayal narrative where the protagonist is a woman dealing with an unfaithful husband. I'm happy to write this. It's a well-established storytelling genre. Let me write the full story now. I knew something was wrong the morning my husband forgot our daughter's middle name. We were filling out a school form together at the kitchen table. A routine re-enrollment packet for Westbrook Academy, the kind of bureaucratic thing that takes 10 minutes. He picked up the pen, got to the line that read, "Full legal name of child," and paused, just half a second, but I caught it. After 11 years of marriage, I had learned to read the pauses. "Sophie Ann?" I said quietly, not looking up from my coffee. "I know," he said. He didn't. "My name is Augusta Mercer. I'm 41 years old. I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia, in a house that had been in my mother's family since 1934, a colonial revival with a wraparound porch and a walnut tree in the backyard that my grandmother planted the year she got married. My mother, Dr. Pursted, the year she got married. Frances Mercer ran the most respected private family medicine practice in Albemarle County for 32 years. My aunt, Sylvia Hargrove, was a federal circuit court judge in the Fourth Circuit. My uncle on my father's side had built a regional hospital network across central Virginia and Tennessee that employed over 4,000 people. I say all of this not to impress you, but because it matters. It matters to what happened, and it matters to how it ended. I met my husband, Marcus, at a fundraising gala for the UVA Children's Hospital when I was 28. He was 34, recently promoted to VP of Development at a mid-size real estate investment firm called Halcyon Partners. He was charming in the way that certain men are charming when they're in a room full of people they want to impress. Attentive, funny, leaning forward when you talked like your words was something worth catching. I was flattered. I introduced him to my mother 2 weeks later, and she shook his hand and smiled with only her mouth. I should have paid more attention to that. We married when I was 29. My family was generous. Quietly, deliberately generous, the way old money tends to be. My uncle's firm extended Halcyon a preferred financing arrangement on 3 commercial properties in Richmond and Roanoke. My mother co-signed a line of credit that helped Marcus make partner at 37. My aunt referred clients, opened doors, made calls. We never talked about it the way people talk about money in movies, with contracts and conditions. It was family. It was what family does. Marcus understood it as opportunity. I understand that now. I run the Mercer Family Foundation, a private philanthropic organization my grandmother established in 1971. We fund medical education scholarships, rural healthcare access programs, and a pediatric research endowment at UVA's hospital. It is not a vanity project. We have a $47 million endowment, a board of 9 directors, and we disperse approximately $3.2 million annually. I have been its executive director for 8 years. I built our digital grant management infrastructure from scratch. I restructured the endowment allocation in 2019 and improved our 5-year return by 11 points. I also raised our daughter almost entirely by myself while doing it. Sophie is 11 now. She has my grandmother's eyes and her father's laugh, which is the cruelest inheritance I can imagine. The first real sign came 14 months before everything broke open. Marcus started working late, not occasionally, consistently, patterned, the kind of late that has a particular texture. He stopped asking about my board meetings. He started going to the gym at 6 in the morning, which he had never once done in 11 years. He bought new cologne. I noticed all of it and told myself a series of small, manageable lies, the way you do when the truth is too expensive to afford before you're ready. Then, in October, I got a call from Renata, our accountant, who had handled the foundation's books for 6 years. She was careful on the phone, almost apologetic. She said there had been a request, routed through Marcus's personal financial advisor, to redirect a quarterly distribution from the Sophie Ann Mercer Education Trust. The trust was established by my mother when Sophie was born. It held $280,000, earmarked for Sophie's college education, with Marcus and me listed as co-trustees. The requested redirect was to a new LLC registered in Delaware, Coastal Bloom Ventures. The sole registered agent was a woman named Farah Quinn. I wrote the name down on a notepad. I kept my voice very even. I told Renata to hold all actions on that request and not to discuss it with anyone. Then I sat at my desk for a long time without moving. I had the name. I had the LLC. From there, it didn't take long. Farah Quinn was 25 years old. She had graduated from George Mason 18 months prior with a degree in marketing. She had been hired at Halcyon Partners 8 months ago as a junior account coordinator. She had a public Instagram account with 1,400 followers, where she posted pictures of wine bars, weekend brunches, and 3 times in the past 4 months. A corner suite at the Salamander Resort in Middleburg, Virginia, 50 miles from our house. My husband had taken me to the Salamander for our 8th anniversary. I did not cry. I want to be honest about that. I thought I would, but I didn't. What I felt was closer to a door swinging open, cold air, sudden clarity, the specific relief of finally knowing the shape of the thing you had been afraid to name. I had been living inside a low-grade fear for over a year. Fear is exhausting. What replaced it wasn't peace exactly. It was focus. I called my Aunt Sylvia that evening after Sophie was in bed. Sylvia is 67 years old. She has silver hair she wears pulled back, and she speaks the way judges speak. Measured, precise, with long silences that mean she is thinking rather than finished. When I told her what I'd found, she was quiet for almost a full minute. "Does he know you know?" she asked. "No." "Good. Keep it that way. Don't move anything. Don't say anything. Come see me this weekend and bring everything you have." I brought her the bank request documentation, screenshots of the LLC registration, Renata's notes, and a 14-page timeline I had put together over the previous 48 hours. Sylvia read it at her kitchen table while I drank tea and watched the Blue Ridge through her window. "He tried to use Sophie's trust," she said finally. "It wasn't a question." "Yes." She closed the folder. "All right." That was all she said. But I understood what it meant. Over the next 6 weeks, I moved with a kind of deliberateness you only find when your anger has had time to cool into something harder and more useful. I consulted with a family attorney in Richmond, someone outside Charlottesville, someone Marcus didn't know. I worked with my mother and my uncle to quietly map every financial touchpoint between the Mercer family and Halcyon Partners, the preferred financing arrangement on the Richmond properties, the $800,000 line of credit my mother had co-signed, which still carried a $340,000 balance, a consulting contract my uncle's hospital network held with the Halcyon-affiliated development group for a proposed medical office building in Staunton. Each of these instruments had terms. Each of these instruments had terms. Each had clauses that had gone unremarked for years because no one had ever needed to remark on them. My uncle reviewed the Staunton contract and noted with an attorney present, everything documented, that Halcyon had missed 2 deliverable milestones. The contract allowed for termination with 60 days written notice. He gave the notice. My mother's attorney sent a formal demand letter regarding the line of credit, citing a clause that allowed acceleration of the full balance upon evidence of misappropriation of co-signer family assets. The attempted redirect of Sophie's trust qualified. The Richmond and Roanoke properties had been financed through a preferred arrangement that was technically renewable at my uncle's firm's discretion each fiscal year. The renewal window came up in December. It was not renewed. I was not present for any of these actions. I was at Sophie's school play the night my uncle's attorney sent the termination notice. I was having dinner with my mother the morning Marcus's CFO called him with the news about the financing. I kept my schedule exactly as it had been. I went to foundation board meetings. I brought Marcus coffee on Sunday mornings. I watched him very carefully and let him think he was invisible. He started losing weight in November. He was on the phone more, stepping outside, voice low. Once, I passed the study door and heard him say, "It's fine. This is temporary. I'm handling it." He looked at me over dinner with something new in his eyes. Something that might have been guilt, or might have been the early stages of fear. I smiled at him. I asked if Sophie had told him about the science fair project. He hadn't known about the science fair project. The night I chose to have the conversation, Marcus came home late from the office, genuinely late, the exhausted late of someone whose professional world is beginning to tilt. Sophie was at my mother's for the night. I had made dinner. I had opened a bottle of wine. I sat across from him at the dining room table where we had eaten 1,000 meals, and I waited until he had finished eating. Then I set a folder on the table between us. He looked at it. He looked at me. I know about Farah, I said. I've known for 6 weeks. I know about the Delaware LLC. I know what you tried to do with Sophie's trust. The color left his face in a way I had never seen happen to a person before. Not gradually, but all at once, like a light switching off. Augusta, I'm not finished. I kept my voice quiet. I had practiced this. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to tell you what's already happened and what's going to happen next. I walked him through it. The financing, the line of credit, the Staunton contract. His company had lost access to the capital structures that had quietly underwritten a decade of his growth, the deals that had made him a partner, the credibility that had opened the doors. My family had not announced any of this. They had simply declined to renew what was theirs to renew. He sat very still. Outside, a car passed on the street. The refrigerator hummed. "How much of this did you?" he started. "All of it," I said. "I coordinated all of it." He put his hands flat on the table. "You did this to our family." I looked at him for a long moment. "You did this to our family," I said. "I just made sure you did it alone." The divorce proceedings began in January. Marcus's attorney attempted in the initial filing to characterize the Mercer family's financial decisions as a coordinated scheme to damage his business interests. My aunt referred him to the relevant contract language. His attorney sent one more letter. Then they stopped. Under Virginia law, a spouse who attempts to misappropriate a child's trust assets, even as a co-trustee, faces significant civil exposure. Marcus's attorney was competent enough to recognize that pursuing any aggressive posture would require his client to litigate that exposure in open court. They settled in March. I kept the house. Marcus retained his equity stake in Halcyon, which was worth considerably less than it had been the previous year, through no action of mine, only the natural consequence of losing the financial relationships that had supported it. Sophie's trust was made whole. My name was removed from every joint account, and his from mine. He moved into an apartment in Charlottesville that was significantly smaller than the one he had apparently been keeping for Farah in Arlington, which I also knew about and chose not to mention in proceedings because I did not need it. The week the divorce was finalized, my mother came over and we sat on the back porch while Sophie climbed the walnut tree my grandmother had planted. The afternoon light was the particular gold that Virginia does in early spring, slanted and warm and unhurried. "She's going to be fine," my mother said. "I know," I said. "You're going to be fine. I know that too." My mother is not a sentimental woman. She has spent 40 years in medicine and she tends toward the practical. But she reached over and covered my hand with hers, and we sat there for a while without talking, watching Sophie navigate the branches with the absolute confidence of a child who has never been told she can't. Halcyon Partners announced a restructuring in April. Marcus was not among the partners named in the new leadership structure. I read the press release once and then closed the browser tab. I have been asked, since then, whether I regret how I handled it, whether there was a version of this where I confronted him sooner, made different choices, preserved something. I understand why people ask. I've asked myself. Here is what I know. I protected my daughter's inheritance. I protected the institution my grandmother built and that my mother sustained and that I have spent 8 years trying to make worthy of both of them. I did not destroy my husband's career. I declined to continue subsidizing it. There is a difference, and it matters to me that the difference is clear. Sophie asked me recently why her dad doesn't come to Sunday dinners anymore. I told her that sometimes adults make choices that change the shape of a family, but that the love doesn't change shape. She thought about this for a moment in the way she thinks about things, seriously, without rushing. "Does he still love me?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Absolutely yes." She seemed satisfied with that. She went back to her book. I sat at my kitchen table in the house that is mine now, in the town where my grandmother's walnut tree is still growing in the backyard, and I thought about how much of what we protect we never speak aloud. My grandmother protected this family. My mother protected it. My aunt protected it. My aunt protected it. And when it was my turn, I found out I knew how. The walnut tree is doing well this year. I had an arborist look at it in February. One of the lower limbs was showing some stress, but he said it was sound. Deep roots, he told me. The kind that hold. I believed him. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty about how it ended for Marcus. Not about the divorce. Most people understand the divorce. They ask about the rest, the financing, the contract, the credit line. They want to know if I think I went too far. I've sat with that question long enough to give it an honest answer. What I did was not revenge. I want to be clear about that, because the distinction matters to me more than I can easily explain. Revenge is something you do to hurt someone. What I did was stop. I stopped my family from continuing to fund a man who had decided, quietly and deliberately, that the people funding him were too trusting to notice. There is a difference between pulling a hand back and swinging it. I pulled mine back. But here is the part I think about more than the ending. I think about the 14 months before it. The cologne. The gym. The pauses. I noticed all of it, and I chose over and over to look away, and I have had to be honest with myself about why. It wasn't weakness exactly. It was the cost of knowing. Once you know something, you have to act on it, and acting on it means your life changes, and changing your life is terrifying even when your life has quietly become something you no longer recognize. I stayed in the not knowing because the knowing felt like too much to carry alone. What I learned, and I don't mean this as a neat lesson, I mean it as something I actually had to earn, is that clarity is not the same as courage, but you cannot have the second without the first. I had to be willing to see what was actually in front of me before I could do anything useful about it. The moment I wrote down Farrah Quinn's name and did not look away from it, something shifted. Not because I became someone different, because I stopped pretending I wasn't who I already was. I am Frances Mercer's daughter. I am Sylvia Hargrove's niece. I grew up in a house built by women who understood that the structures you build around the people you love, the legal ones, the financial ones, the institutional ones, are not cold or transactional. They are a form of care. My grandmother didn't establish the foundation because she distrusted people. She established it because she understood that love without structure is just hope, and hope alone has never protected anyone. Marcus counted on my hope. He counted on my not wanting to look, and for 14 months he was right to count on it. Sophie climbed that walnut tree the week after the divorce was finalized, and she did it the way she does everything, without asking permission, without checking if it was safe, just reaching for the next branch with complete confidence in her own hands. I watched her from the porch and I thought, that is what I want her to keep. Not the money and the trust, though I'm glad it's safe. Not the house, though I'm glad it's mine. I want her to keep that, the reaching. The assumption that the branch will hold because she is strong enough to test it. The people who build things worth having are almost never the loudest people in the room. They are the ones paying attention. They are the ones who know what they've built and what it's worth and who it's for. Marcus never understood that. He thought the money was the power. He didn't understand that the money was only ever the byproduct of something older and quieter and considerably harder to take. He found that out. I'm sorry it cost Sophie her Sunday dinners with her father. I'm not sorry about anything else.